Hi and welcome back everybody. So now we are going to invite some of the team from CompanyNet up onto the stage. They've got a number of case studies that they're from across the public sector that they're going to run over with us. And we have got Ian McIntyre, who is the Public Sector Director, and we'll also have Ian Davidson, who's the Customer Programme Director. So if you just give me a second. So Ian Davidson, what if you mute your camera and mic at the moment if you want, and then you can unmute it once you're ready to speak. Ian, I'll just hand over to yourself. I'll still be here in the background, so if you need anything or you've got any technical issues, if you just give me a shout, all right?
Thank you, Esther. Hi, good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to attend this event today. Normally, CompanyNet might attend 2 to 3 events like this every year, but 2020 has been no ordinary year, of course. So I'm really looking forward to this kind of digital virtual experience. So let's see how it goes. So yeah, my name is Ian McIntyre. I'm responsible for CompanyNet's kind of public sector business. I myself spent 30 years in public sector in Scotland, and I'm now sort of translating that experience to help CompanyNet engage with the public sector and build effective relationships with public sector organisations. So let me take a few minutes just to introduce CompanyNet to you. We are based in George Street in Edinburgh and St Vincent Street in Glasgow, and we've been in business for 24 years. Our customers and our projects pretty much map to the GDP of Scotland, certainly, and elements of the UK more generally, i.e., we've worked in financial services, we've worked in the Scottish food and drink sector, we've worked in oil and gas, manufacturing, engineering, and of course the public sector generally in Scotland with the Scottish Government, with local authorities, the NHS and academia, and with UK government departments across the wider UK. We've also survived a couple of recessions in the last 24 years, so we like to think that we can manage risk very effectively, and COVID is of course an exceptional risk. It's good to say that we are stronger today than we were when we entered lockdown, testament to our risk management, I think. CompanyNet has always been a Microsoft Gold partner with kind of multiple accreditations across various competences, but we are probably best known for our work in or with SharePoint. In the last 5 years, we focused our business on the cloud, on Microsoft 365 and Azure specifically. So we now have an array of services to support customers to implement, adopt and exploit the very powerful capabilities of Microsoft 365 and Azure. Next slide, please, Tanis. So we're going to talk about Microsoft Teams today, and we can't help but reflect on the growth of Microsoft Teams. Numbers suggest from 75 million to something like 150 million daily uses almost overnight, and that number will be much higher today. But of course, this is not surprising. Some of you may have deployed Teams already, but many were probably planning for that event. And then lockdown happened and we had no access to our offices and our normal ways of working. So remote working capability became critical, and products like Microsoft Teams was, well, frankly, switched on in a hurry. In many cases without the planning rigor you would normally apply. So perhaps things got missed. Perhaps Teams wasn't configured perfectly. Perhaps users weren't supported properly. And perhaps you're now drowning in sort of post-Teams implementation issues. And so that's why we're here today, to share some of these stories, some of the experiences we've acquired over the last 9 months or so, to share the insights from those customers and those projects. I'll hand over now to my colleague Ian Davidson, who'll take you through the bulk of the presentation, and I'll pop back at the end just to provide some closing thoughts.
Thanks, Ian. For that. Taras, do you want to push on the slide to the next slide? Cool. So I'm Ian Davidson, Customer Program Director at CompanyNet. So my role is really about transformation, not just from a technology point of view, but also the people and processes that go along with that. So as Ian said, I'm going to talk to you a bit about Teams and the challenge that a number of us faced and some still face with the use of Teams. So the impact of remote working, I think, it's been quite a year 2020, and we've all had to adapt quite a bit to the pandemic and what it's brought to us, both in our business and our personal lives. One of the things is, from a business point of view, the normal ways we would work together, sit in meeting rooms, side of desk conversations, and desk phones are no more. We don't have access to these things, which is one of the reasons the Microsoft Teams has come along and is really in a lot of people's thoughts at the moment. Okay, next slide. Oh, slide's not on. So a bit about what Teams is on there. So it really is Microsoft's collaboration toolset, and it comes in with some key functionality. So there's voice functionality, there's video, there's chat, and there's file sharing in there. And these things are really powerful and can fill at least some of the void that has been created by the lack of, as I said, the traditional ways of working together. So you can collaborate together with individuals, you can work with teams, you can share documents, you can host meetings. You can also host very large meetings in the case of a live event up to 10,000 people who you can actually present to. And then you can really get a sense of community, again, by creating your team digitally instead of that team being physically together in the office. So when you're looking at Teams in the first instance, it can seem daunting. How to do this? There's a lot of questions without answers when you initially start on this. And really, you'll have three areas that I want to talk to you and I really have a lot of questions. The IT department, what is this? Where do people access it from? What kit do they need? How are we going to give it to people? How are we going to support this as an organisation? And then you'll have the security and governance, the police of the organisation. They want to control it. They want to know what people can do and how they can stop doing certain things, how can they report on things, and how they can ensure that both data isn't lost through the use of this tool, or they can actually control and report on compliance and adhere to the existing policies within the organisation. And then last but not least, you have the business themselves. What is this you're giving us on it? How do I use it? What kit are you giving me? When am I getting it? So they will have lots of questions that they want answered at the start. So if you actually go and then break it down a bit, and this is based on, as I said, as Ian said at the start, our experience of having been through this with a number of organisations. From an IT point of view, you can access it from desktops, laptops, and also smartphones, iOS and Android. It comes with different functionality and also different controls you can apply to it. So you need to work out what you're going to give people access to, on what devices and when. You need to remember headsets, as you need a way of actually interacting from a voice point of view. That can be, like I'm doing just now, just talking to the device, which has got a really good microphone on it, or you might need dedicated headsets from that point of view. The configuration itself, as I said, there's four main parts to it: voice, video, chat, and file sharing. You can switch off file sharing at the start by not giving people access to Teams sites. That can make some of the governance, data governance conversations easier, and I'll cover a bit about governance in a second. The other thing to remember is we used to talk to people outside the organisation. So how do we do that on Teams? It has facilities built in, so you can enable guest access. So you can set up a meeting, and you can invite external people to that meeting. It gets the link, they click on the link, they can join the meeting and interact with you, voice, video, and chat within the construct of that meeting. But you can also go a bit further. You can add on voice conferencing. You probably use this. It's a phone number, PIN code, and you've got access into the meeting. That is an add-on license you can buy from Microsoft, as you can with phone calls. So you can buy a phone number for the device and have people externally ring your laptop or mobile phone from the Teams number, not your own mobile number. That comes with, again, licensing that you can purchase from Microsoft over and above the basics. Live events, as I said, can be useful. There's now 350 in a normal Teams meeting, but you might need to go beyond that. So do you need to make it available up to 10,000? Do you want that kind of broadcast capability in it? And then last but not least, security and governance, which I'll cover in a second. Really important that you apply the controls to this tool and don't let it get out of hand. Deployment, IT department, how can I get this to people? You can push it out. It's just a client. You can push it out using your normal tools, Microsoft SCCM or the like. You can just push it out there. You can control it and how it's updated. Auto update facilities there, and it's quite a good one to do. It just updates the client as and when Microsoft push out an update, which tend to be quite small on it and quite good to adopt quite early. Mobile phones and tablets, it's in the App Store. You download it, and by applying some of the controls in a minute, you can get it configured automatically to register within your company and get access to the data within your organization. And then management, one of the key things for me in this is that your laptop becomes a phone and it becomes a video conferencing unit. So you really need to understand how am I going to support this? And the telecoms team, 365 team and desktop team need to have that conversation and work out how do we do this? What do you do? What do I do? To make it all fit together. Also, as you've no doubt experienced on it, Teams is interactive. Voice and video is real time. Any dip in performance and there's a break in the voice, there's a break in the video. We've all been through it where people can't get in, those kind of things. So you actually really need to consider that and actually go beyond the corporate world and think, I'm actually supporting people's home setups here. What if the laptop's doing an antivirus scan? Understand these because they are part of the support that you will need to provide. And then last but not least in this is Microsoft don't stop. It doesn't stop the minute you give it out. They update it all the time. I mean, earlier in the year it was called Office 365. They've even changed the name to Microsoft 365. So you really need to keep on top of that and make sure your business understand, what's coming and how these updates are going to hit them. So on to the next bit of security and governance. So they want to make sure it conforms to corporate policies and make sure the data doesn't get into anybody's hands that it shouldn't, the basic stuff. So for me, the bit to start with is acceptable use. Actually document how you want people to use it, what they can and can't store, any environmental considerations where they can and can't use it, and what they can do. Can they create team sites, delete them, delete messages, files, record meetings, all those things you need to work through in terms of how you want it to behave and document that. That policy would then be supplied to everybody as they get the tool set. 365 also comes with a lot of tools to allow you to govern the data. You can classify it based on content, whether it's sensitive or not, and then apply retention policies to it. And you can delete data at the end of its natural lifespan on it. And you can put policies in to control the data based on the classification. So you can say sensitive data cannot be used in the following way, which gives you really good control around your data within the organization and some comfort to the governance teams. E-discovery tool comes with it as well, and that allows you to do reporting on it, so you can actually prove your position as well, going back into the proving your policies. Next bit is about role-based access control, or RBAC, as it's quite often referred to. This is who can do what, plain and simple. So there are admin roles defined within 365. Which ones do you want to put people into? What do we want those people to be able to do? And what do we want the users to do back to the acceptable use? Actually put that in place so that you've got confidence about what the users and administrators can and can't do within there. Moving on to the next bit, consideration there, and you can probably see I'm focusing quite a lot on security and governance. That's because it is a major part of actually launching this and getting people to use it safely and securely. Microsoft gives you some tools to control access across device types, and one of the key ones is conditional access. And that really based on a set of conditions, and it can be who the user is, where they are, how they're accessing it. You can apply a set of controls. You can say you cannot get access from here, or if you come in from here, I want you to prove a bit more about who you are before you get access, or I'm going to present you with something that you have to sign up to before you get further into our world. That's a really important thing to put in place and really get on top of as an organization, not just for Teams, but beyond for 365 in general. Microsoft also give you a tool called Intune, which allows you to securely deploy applications to mobile phones. So as I said, people can download the app. What Intune does is combine that with the corporate world. and it creates a bubble of corporate data and applications on personal phones, which means you can't copy it off onto the personal phone and you have complete control over that data. And then the last bit there really is Azure MFA or multi-factor authentication. Normally you log in, username, password, and that's fine. But when you're remote, you want a bit more to make sure that it is indeed that person. And it's this something you have. So the capability comes for people to register their mobile phone. And when they try and log on, it interacts with either an application that they have to press a button on, a code they get an SMS, or a phone call that they interact with. Back to the control part round about conditional access, it gives you that comfort that actually that is who the person is and it's okay to let them access our world. So that's security and governance. And then firing on from that, the business themselves, so user adoption. And I think the worst thing you can possibly do with this is just give it to people, say, there you go. You know, there's enough change going on in people's world without a tool being thrown at them that has got a bit about it, some moving parts, and it's a completely different way of working than before. So you really need to plan for success within this. Work out, you know, what do you want to do here? How are you going to launch this? What are you going to tell people? My advice would be don't give them too much information too soon. Actually drip feed them, give them the basics, let it grow, let them get used to it and really feel their way into the product on it. Create a champions network. Get people out there who are interested in IT, who are the sort of geeks within the business. Get them involved, get them on the inside. Tell them about the product, learn yourself from what they're seeing, how they're using it, and feel your way again further into the world of the business. And then when you're ready and you've got everything together, actually go and deploy it out to groups of people within the business with the Champions Network supporting you in that, because there will be a lot of questions. It is different. People do struggle with it for the initial. And it needs to become a habit using it as opposed to how you previously worked on it. So actually do that and get the sort of feedback loop going with the champions as well. How did you find it? What are you using it for? And you will learn yourself quite a lot. And certainly I've learned with deploying it, you know, people use it in different ways and want to do different things. So you need to learn and adapt yourself to how the business are operating with the new tool set. Okay. And then you've got it out. As Ian said, some of you might have this out there and using it just now. So, you know, what do you need to do? What changes in your world on it? So as I said earlier, you know, your computer is now a phone and a video conferencing unit. You need to work out how you support that differently because it is a bit of a different beast to before. Traditional monitoring as well from an IT perspective. You know, we look at what's up and what's down, major deviations in performance. But now you're supporting, instead of 4,000 people in an office, you're supporting 4,000 offices in it. User experience is key. And one of the things I find is perception is now something you get more and more. It feels like a lot of people are getting, I was in some meetings today and it felt like a lot of people were getting the same thing in there. So you really need to consider how you monitor and understand user experience. Now 365 comes with some basics, but actually there's a lot of tools out there that give you really good granular information to understand 365, how's Teams performing, how many people got, you know, degradation within Teams, or in general, actually on the laptop, how did it perform? What did the user get? Was it good? Was it not so good? Were there lots of people getting the same? Really help you uncover it and turn the conversations from it feels like to here's actually what happened and make it factual, which is really important. As I said as well, monitor adoption. Don't assume people are using it. It needs to become a habit and one that you keep having to reiterate with them. Monitor the usage, put that feedback loop in, reiterate the messages, make sure they're using it. And as the changes come in, on the evergreen front, you know, Microsoft update it all the time. Make sure you've got that loop to assess the changes, enable them, make sure people understand them and make sure they're using them and benefiting from them. There's been quite a lot, and Microsoft, to be fair to them, have done a lot with Teams over the course of the pandemic to really help people and work better, and do listen to feedback that organisations provide about features that they would like to bring in. Breakout rooms is one that is just about to hit, which is something a lot of people could get on Zoom but couldn't get on Teams, but they've now reacted and bringing that in. So really get that loop in there to do that assessment and start bringing the changes to the fore. Make sure the business are using it and make sure the business keep using it and benefit from it. Okay, onto some hints and tips to sort of round up there. So this is not really an IT change, it's a business and cultural one. And you probably heard, the session earlier, in other sessions, remote working is a different beast to working in the offices. On this, don't assume people know how to use IT. It's very dangerous to do so. And I've run into some interesting support calls over the course of the pandemic where people just don't know how to use it. They used to walk into an office, sit at a desk, log in, and then go home. Now you're asking them about home broadband, about internet connections and stuff, and they maybe don't understand these things. So start with simple messages, enhance the functionality, let people grow into it. Don't give them everything at once because they might just switch off and you've lost them. Another hint and tip is use video. I don't like seeing myself on the screen, and I'm not watching myself just now, and I'm sure I'm not alone, but make it more human. Use of video. If everybody's on video, you can interact more like you would in the office. It's more like an office experience on it. And again, based on the last conversation, the last presentation, take breaks. Do not sit in front of the computer for 8 hours. Do not assume people are available all the time because, they're at home on it. You need breaks. You need headspace to do other stuff. So, watch how you're using it. And there's a slide just in a minute which will cover that. Support, as I said, it is different, but also day one, there'll be a lot of questions that people raise. Try and do it away from your service desk. Don't let the service desk be inundated with calls on this. A lot will be, how do I do? I've seen this, what do I do with that? Use your champions. Help them spread the word, onboard people, get people set up successfully and off and running with this. As I said, perception can be a major issue. It feels like, especially from senior management on it, make these factual, look at your monitoring, get a real handle on what actually is happening and play back the factual situation to the business. Some point soon, we will hopefully go back into the office and you go, right, okay, how did we used to do meetings? It was in meeting rooms, it was desks. How do we use the technology and integrate back into that world on it? There are options there. There's team meeting room technology you've got there, but you've probably invested in phones and video conferencing units. So look at how you can integrate them and start looking now about how you can integrate them with Teams to get a joined up experience. Most companies, I suspect, will go to blended, some remote, some in the office. How do you join it together so that it's a seamless experience? In my experience, make it difficult and people will switch off and they'll do other stuff. And that's not really what you want in this. You want teams to continue to be, at the core of how you collaborate as a business. Security and governance, can't stress enough on that one. Get them on side, get them on board, or they could stop this happening at pace on it. And also, in amongst that, don't let them try and fit the tool to their policies. Try and fit the policy to the tool. So look at what the tool can do. A lot of stuff these tools bring in terms of that. So actually look at transforming the policy and using the tool to apply it, as much of it as possible. It's easier to change the policy than it is to Microsoft to change the tool, which is used by 130 million other people. So really force that message home with them. And then look for assistance. There are a lot of people out there. Microsoft themselves do provide a lot of help on this one and help companies on it. The partner network out there as well. And there's been a lot of work done by ourselves at CompanyNet and others, really helping people with all aspects of Teams deployment, from the start configuration, security and governance, get your data classified, right through to the adoption piece on there. Especially if you're doing it fast, these people have been through it, we've been through it, can help smooth any bumps along the way on there. And then last slide, just a lot of this was kind of covered in the last presentation if you saw it, but applies to Teams on it. Don't always be available on Teams on it. Set do not disturb, take some time out. Be mindful of colleagues' times. Don't assume they're there from 8:30 in the morning till 5:30 at night. You do need to do work outside of, chat. And you can't get caught up in the world of typing away chat messages all day and attending meetings and this and that on it. Actually remember, people had a job before and they did some work outside of meeting and talking to people. Block off some time. Do it on a daily basis. Use the focus time feature within Teams. Block out bits where you go and do not disturb. You just take time out. Make sure you take your lunch, your coffee breaks. These things are in there. Make meetings 25 minutes or 50 minutes. Don't make them half an hour and an hour. Give yourself that 5 minutes for a short break between sessions. Turn off notifications is another thing. You do not want every single Teams chat that you're in and Teams site you're in, notifying you, pinging your mobile. You know, it can get very distracting, take you away from your job. And also it's hard to really focus in it, and you can get lost in, you know, your priorities in there. And that's it from me. Hopefully you found that useful.
Ian. Thank you, Ian.
Thanks to both of the Ians. We've got a few questions coming up in the chat, so let's just have a wee look. So I mean, you know that you're preaching to the converted, talking to me about 365 not being an IT project and being much more about adoption, utilisation, and it really being a transformation project. But one of the things that I really know that organisations struggle with is that, like, business case. Like, have you got any advice on how you get the business case around some of the softer stuff? Like, when you talk about collaboration, communication, like, how do you get the investment to try and improve that? Because, I mean, I've been working with an organisation and somebody said to me, all my chief officer is interested in is the bottom line. And you think, oh, that's quite a tough one when we're going with a lot of this kind of softer organisational improvement stuff. I just wondered if you had any advice there.
I can take that one if you want. I mean, I think it's difficult. There's no two ways about it. I mean, it is difficult, and it's back to the thing, as I said, you know, we can show examples where throwing out the tool and saying, there you go, actually fails on it. And you can even do that. And I think edging your way into the deployment, you can see quite quickly in there. So you might not get the investment up front. You might have to wait a bit before you get that investment in the actual adoption piece. From there, and certainly seen that within an organisation I've been working with, where they were sort of sold in it, but they didn't go over the line in terms of saying, right, okay, we're going to actually spend the time and effort to do the whole adoption piece to really get this rolled out. We gave it to a few people and then pointed out where they weren't using it effectively and properly. We gave them a taste for how they could do it and some hints and tips about using it. Even simple things like the app, to actually ping it in front of people. You know, people weren't aware of that one because it literally was, there's an IT solution, crack on. So I think some people will be bought into it and understand it, and certainly there's, you know, Microsoft can help with a lot of material they provide, as can the partners, in terms of here's some reasons why adoption really is a good thing to do, but sometimes you actually have to prove it to them. And my advice would be, if you don't get that sold up front, show it to a few people, let them fail a wee bit without doing the whole organisation, and then look back around and tell them how you could actually do this more effectively with some investment in really education for the business and putting that sort of feedback loop in to make sure it's been used effectively.
So quite a few people are actually saying the idea about having like shorter meetings with a break is really chiming with people. I know it was something that Vodafone talked about the other day, like they have 45-minute meetings with a 15-minute break. Somebody else is saying the 25 minutes. It seems like a really good idea. Another question from the floor. Do you see Cortana having a role in the digital office and working?
Yes, it can be useful on the stuff coming in on it and some of the messages there, and people again some people do appreciate it and what it comes up with, and it just gives you wee reminders of things, and you know, you can get your stuff out that tells you, you know, of what did it do, who did you collaborate with, you know, did you take enough focus time, those kind of things. It can give you a row as well, the tool.
Yeah.
It says you're doing a bit too much of this, which I think is quite good. And I think, you know, Microsoft themselves recognise the health and well-being aspect of the tool set. So they're doing stuff with Headspace to actually integrate it together and join it together. So you're really getting a personal dashboard of stuff. Here's stuff that, did you send that to the person? Did you do this on it? But also you've done a bit much of this, or actually you've done a lot of email out of hours, or you've been on holiday. Why have you done stuff? So it can give you a row in there as well. So yeah, and definitely.
I've seen some organisations on the local government M365 Teams site sharing some quite good stuff around the analysis and around how they've used the analysis that's come out of Microsoft around some of the stuff around collaboration. And Aberdeen also spoke about they measured their collaboration and their communication and how effectively they were using the tools. And I think it started at 20%. They also talked about around the Digital Champions Network, and they managed to get their utilisation automation from 20% up to 80%. So I think that that thing around using the information that you've got and using the champions to harness that, there's some quite good use case studies there. We've got another question from an organisation who's about to get Teams in 365 within the next 6 months. Do you have any advice or tips for training for employees?
Well, I think there's no one size fits all for them. Some people will just go and duck to water and just take off with the stuff. But so again, you need to understand, I think it's how do you want to use the tool? How do you want people to use the tool? So I think start with that on it. So the acceptable use policy, as I said in there, work out some of the stuff there that you actually want to do, and then go about, looking at how you do that and build from there on it, because it can do a lot of stuff, but you can also get lost in the tool and do the stuff badly. So actually start with that on it. And again, with any of these things, if you're embarking on it, I mean, security and governance, I did speak quite a bit about that. Actually start with there, because they might put some constraints on you about how you're going to use it as well. So actually get that sorted as well, because that will inform you again on how you can tell people to use the tool on it.
Rebecca, there is actually quite a lot of good case studies through the digital office, so it would be worth having a look at what some of the other councils have been doing. I know that Perth and Kinross, Aberdeen, North Ayrshire have all got really good champions networks that they've used to roll their training out, and a number of them, one of the things that you were saying there, Ian, is think about what you want people to do. So a number of organisations have also looked at developing personas, so like who are the different people in your organisation, what is it that they need to do, and then tailoring the training to that. So you might have people that you're training on a whole suite of products. You might have other people that they're really just high level using like Teams or Yammer, but potentially, Rebecca, if you want to catch up with me at one of the tables, I can talk to you in a wee bit more detail, because I've been involved. I'm not an Office 365 expert just before, but I have been involved in a number of projects, particularly on the adoption and utilisation side. So I'm going to very quickly take another couple of questions, although potentially these might be a wee bit off topic, but broadband speed for home workers, does anybody have any advice? How do we test that so that we know that they will be able to access it and get a good user experience?
Yeah, I mean, there are tools out there that you can use just to download and do it, and certainly, my experience, quite a few people. I mean, it's quite tolerant. It does work at quite low broadband speeds on it. Microsoft do give you some guidance on the minimum requirements from there, so you can download that and have a look at it. But there are tools out there you can do testing on the broadband there. But if you're doing corporate laptops, then you maybe want to roll out a tool set there. But again, back to the monitoring of it, the user experience is now more critical than before, and there are tool sets out there. Just to name drop a few, Eternity, NextThink, they're out there, and the clients go onto the device itself. It doesn't just tell you on the device, it sort of traces the user's experience through the whole network, from their home broadband across the internet into the corporate world or into the cloud, and really gives you a good feel for what they're seeing and any degradation from their point of view. So really would have a look at those tool sets as part of doing this and the whole remote working, because it's here to stay, and you really, the support model from an IT perspective has radically changed.
And just very finally, before we move on, any tips on recording meetings?
A hot topic on it. Do you, don't you? What people do. I think start again with the security and governance teams. What do they want people to do? It's a very good thing, and certainly a lot of PAs like it. They don't need to take minutes to record it, and they can do it at leisure. They don't need to attend. They can get somebody the recording and they can play it back. Training people like it as well. But actually have a look at the security and governance. Do you want people to be able to do it? Do you want everybody to do it? Because you can control it by user. So you could give user groups access to it on there, but get your policy set from that point of view on it. Also, there's some improvements coming in Stream on it. So Stream is now the storage for Stream, which is the sort of video and where the meeting recordings would naturally go if you've got it enabled. It's moving to SharePoint on there, so that gives you more control about classification, about retention policies, which the security and governance teams will like more on than where it is just now. So again, I know I keep saying security and governance, but it is at the heart of what you're able to do here. Get in front of them, understand what they want people to do, and then decide how far or deep you want to go into the organisation, whether it's groups or it's the whole company that can do it.
Thanks very much. A really engaging session, the guys from CompanyNet. I know that somebody's got to go away at 12 o'clock, but if there's any of you that are able to stay on a wee bit longer, so that if people have got any follow-up questions at the next networking or break, absolutely great.
If I might just add very quickly,
yes.
I'm conscious that we cover a lot of detail on that slide deck, so of course we'll make it available to yourself and you can pass it on to the delegates and so on. And we'll update the slide deck briefly just to reference a monthly newsletter that CompanyNet produce that communicates all the change, benefits, and issues with Office 365. People can subscribe to that and stay connected, stay up to date with that sort of information. So I'd encourage the audience to take a look at that and follow up.
All right, perfect. Thanks very much, Ian.